There are medications that do not hurt, do not burn, and do not give you any clear warning sign, yet they may still be weakening your bones from the inside out. A lot of people think osteoporosis only shows up in someone who is very old, very frail, or who spent a lifetime living with unhealthy habits. But that is not always true. Some people walk every day, eat reasonably well, never smoked, never drank too much, and still end up with a serious fracture after a simple fall at home. That is exactly what happened to Mrs. Francis. She was 68 years old, active, independent, took care of her home, and walked every day. To anyone looking from the outside, she seemed to be doing everything right. But one day she tripped on the living room rug. It was a simple fall, the kind of fall most people would expect to leave only a bruise and a scare. But she did not get back up. Her femur broke, and it broke in a way nobody expected from such a minor fall. At the hospital, the question came fast and hard. How can a bone break so easily if the person never even knew it was fragile? And that is where a part of the story begins that almost nobody sees. Sometimes the real problem did not start with the fall. Sometimes it started much earlier, silently, inside a daily routine, inside a box of medication sitting in a drawer at home. Today, I want to show you something that can completely change the way you look at your health and your family's health. There are very common medications that may contribute to bone loss, weaker bones, and a higher risk of fractures. And the most important thing here is not to create fear. It is to create awareness. I am EDU Rodriguez, a pharmacist, biochemist, and health educator. I have lived with type 1 diabetes for more than 26 years, and I do this work to turn complex health topics into something simple, direct, and useful for everyday life. And I want to be very clear from the beginning. This content is not for you to stop any medication on your own. If a doctor prescribed it, there was a reason. My goal here is to help you ask better questions at your next appointment. Before I talk about the medications, I need to explain something many people have never been told. Bone is not dead tissue. Bone is alive. It is constantly being renewed. While you're sitting, walking, sleeping, or watching a video like this, your body is removing old bone and building new bone at the same time. Think of it this way. One team is responsible for building. The other team is responsible for removing old material to make room for the new one. When those two teams work in balance, your bone stays strong. The problem starts when that balance is lost. When removal happens faster than rebuilding, the bone slowly becomes more porous, more fragile, and more vulnerable, often without pain and without any obvious warning. That is exactly where some medications can come in. Each one affects the body in a different way. Some speed up bone breakdown. Others interfere with the absorption of nutrients that bones need. Others disturb hormones that help protect bone mass. And because this process is slow, silent, and cumulative, many people only find out when it is already too late. One important group to mention is the medication used in the treatment of breast cancer in postmenopausal women, such as anastrozole and letrozole. These drugs can play a major role in treatment and may be essential for reducing the risk of the disease coming back. But by lowering the effect of estrogen, they also remove an important layer of protection for women's bones. Estrogen helps slow down bone loss. When estrogen drops sharply, bone breakdown tends to increase. That means bone mass may decline faster. But I need to be very fair here. This does not mean the medication is bad or that it should be stopped. It means that anyone using this type of medication should have proper follow-up, bone health monitoring, and protective strategies guided by the doctor. Another group that surprises a lot of people is certain anticonvulsant medications, such as phenytoin, carbamazepine, and phenobarbital. And here there is an important detail. They are not used only for epilepsy. They can also be used in neuropathic pain, neuralgia, and other neurological conditions. These medications may increase the breakdown of vitamin D in the liver. In simple language, that means the body may use up or inactivate vitamin D faster than normal. And without enough vitamin D, the body has a harder time absorbing calcium from food. Over time, that can contribute to weaker bones. If you have been using one of these medications for a long time, it is worth talking to your doctor about monitoring. Not because the medication must automatically be avoided, but because nobody takes good care of what they never check. In the middle of this conversation, we also have a medication that is extremely common, levothyroxine. Millions of people take it to treat hypothyroidism. And I want to be very balanced here. Levothyroxine, when properly indicated and properly adjusted, is a very important, safe, and necessary medication. The problem is usually not the medication itself. The problem is an inappropriate dose. When the dose is higher than the body really needs, the person may end up in a state of excess thyroid hormone, and that excess speeds up bone turnover. In other words, bone is renewed too quickly, and bone loss may outpace bone formation. This is especially important in women after menopause and in people who have been taking the medication for many years without regular reassessment. That is why I always insist on follow-up. It is not enough to take the medication and repeat the same dose for years without reviewing labs. The body changes. Weight changes. Age changes. Other diseases appear. What was correct years ago may not be ideal today. If this is already opening your eyes, take a moment to like this video and tell me in the comments if you already knew about this connection between medication and bone health. I like bringing this kind of alert because sometimes one simple piece of information arrives at exactly the right time and prevents a much bigger problem later. Now I want to talk about one of the best known groups when it comes to bone damage: corticosteroids. Prednisone, prednisolone, dexamethasone, and others in this family are extremely useful drugs. They can save lives, control severe inflammation, improve breathing crises, help in autoimmune diseases, serious allergies, and many other situations. But long-term corticosteroid use is one of the classic causes of medication-induced osteoporosis, and this happens through several pathways at the same time. These medications reduce new bone formation, decrease calcium absorption in the intestines, and increase calcium loss through the kidneys. It is as if the body receives less material to build with while also losing more than it should. What makes this even more concerning is that bone loss can begin relatively early in people who use them for extended periods. And many people do not realize it because you do not feel your bones getting weaker. They only find out when the pain shows up, when posture starts changing, when a fracture happens, or when a bone density exam finally reveals the damage. It is also important to remember that corticosteroids are not found only in tablets. Sometimes they are part of injections, infiltrations, repeated treatments for pain, joint flare-ups, and other conditions. So it is not enough to think only about prednisone. You have to look at the full history of use. But the group that really catches my attention in this conversation is one that many people take as if it were completely harmless. Medications for heartburn, reflux, and stomach burning, such as omeprazole, pantoprazole, esomeprazole, and lansoprazole. These are very common drugs. Some people started taking one during a period of stomach trouble and never stopped. Some buy them on their own. Some take them every single day for years and cannot even remember why they started. And that is where the danger of normalization comes in. These medications reduce stomach acid. In some situations, that is very helpful and very necessary. The problem is when the use continues for a long time without reassessment. Stomach acid plays a role in the absorption of some nutrients. When acid stays reduced for long periods, the body may have more difficulty absorbing calcium, iron, and magnesium properly. And that is where symptoms begin that many people dismiss as simple aging. Brittle nails, ongoing fatigue, weakness, leg cramps, hair loss, palpitations in some cases, low energy. Of course, these symptoms are not always caused by this. But in some people, long-term use of these medications may be an important piece of the puzzle. Poor calcium absorption can affect bone health. Poor iron absorption can contribute to anemia. Low magnesium can play a role in cramps, discomfort, and in some cases more important issues. What worries me is that very often each symptom gets treated separately and nobody looks at the medication box. A person goes to the orthopedist because of back pain, then to the dermatologist because of hair loss, then to the primary doctor because of fatigue, then to the cardiologist because of palpitations. And nobody connects that. In some cases, one daily pill may be sitting behind several symptoms that look completely unrelated. That does not mean omeprazole is an absolute villain. That is not the point. There are situations where it is important, indicated, and truly necessary. The mistake is using it without review, self-medicating, and turning a short-term solution into something taken indefinitely without asking whether it is still needed. When I talk about this topic, I always return to one simple idea. Information changes outcomes. The person who knows that a medication may affect bone health does not need to panic. That person gets organized. That person asks questions. That person follows up. That person stops being passive and starts taking part in their own care. So I want to leave you with one practical step. After this video, go check your medication box. Look carefully at the active ingredient. Do not look only at the brand name on the front. Read the small print. See what you are taking every day. If you find one of these medications, do not make changes on your own, but write it down and bring that information to your next medical appointment. The question can be simple and powerful. Could this medication be affecting my bones? Do I need to monitor vitamin D, calcium, magnesium, iron, ferritin, or thyroid function? Is there any reason to check my bone density in my case? Do I need to review the dose or how long I have been taking it? Sometimes that conversation alone changes everything. In some cases, the doctor may keep the medication and reinforce protective measures. In others, the doctor may reassess the need, the dose, the duration, or possible alternatives. The most dangerous thing is not knowing there may be a risk. The most dangerous thing is spending years exposed without ever making the connection. And I need to tell you something else. Medication is not the only factor. Bone health also depends on adequate nutrition, enough protein, physical activity, especially resistance training and strengthening exercise, proper vitamin D status when appropriate, fall prevention, and the preservation of muscle mass. Strong bones are not built with calcium alone. They are built with stimulus, nutrition, balanced hormones, functioning muscles, and consistent monitoring over time. That is why when a person loses muscle, stops moving, eats poorly, and also uses medications that may weaken the bone, the risk adds up. That is exactly why a femur fracture in an older adult is such a serious event. It is not just a broken bone. In many cases, it is the beginning of major loss of independence. The person stops walking the same way, loses confidence, loses freedom, and may enter a very hard cycle to reverse. Mrs. Francis' story is not here to scare you. It is here to wake you up. Because nobody wants to discover too late that they spent years protecting one part of the body while forgetting another. Many people protect the stomach and forget the bone. They treat the thyroid and forget to review the dose. They control pain and forget to watch bone mass. Real health requires a full picture. If you know someone who takes heartburn medication every day, uses corticosteroids often, treats thyroid disease, or takes anticonvulsants, share this message. Sometimes it is a mother, a father, an aunt, a grandfather, a neighbor, someone in your family who needed to hear this before a fall, before a fracture, before losing independence. I like talking about prevention because once the problem appears, the road is usually much harder. Prevention is simpler, less expensive, and more humane. And prevention begins with attention to details that almost nobody values enough. At the end of the day, the main message is this: an important medication is still important. But an important medication also needs follow-up. What protects one part of the body cannot be evaluated without looking at the rest. Good medicine looks at the whole person. Subscribe to the channel and share this video with your family, because this kind of alert can make a huge difference in the life of someone you love. And tell me in the comments, do you or someone close to you use any of these medications for a long time?